Hello, everybody. Welcome to next episode of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Excuse me. It's Sunday afternoon, about 5:30 Eastern time. Um, Clark, have you recovered from the Heat game the other night?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a brutal way to lose.
yeah,
It seemed like the Heat. I was because the the whole game we're kind of texting, and I'm like, I'm really nervous about this. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Heat are going to lose. They're going to end up losing the series, and so I was pretty negative about it. And then it gets to the last few minutes. I'm like, all right, come on, Miami, just find some way to pull out some kind of miracle. And they came back. Duncan Robinson hit a three. I mean, Jimmy Butler was terrible shooting, but he just managed to get to the free throw line. And he hits those three free throws, and there's 3 seconds left, and I'm like, all right, I think we got this. Like knowing Boston, they're going to put up a bad shot. And what's even funnier is, so Strus and I think Jimmy Butler double teamed Tatum to make sure that he couldn't get the ball, right? So then the ball goes to Marcus Smart, and of course Marcus Smart is taking the biggest shot of the series for the Celtics, right? And it almost goes in, because of course it does. And then Strus, because he had gone over to double team Tatum, who's the other guy? Derek
White.
Yeah, Derek White was sort of free to get to the basket. Plus, the way the ball bounced out of the basket, it went right to him.
Yep.
So, I mean, if it goes forward instead of to the side, Bam grabs the rebound, and the Heat are going to the finals. So it's just, that's a brutal way to lose, because it seemed like they were doing it again. They had a lead, and they were blowing the lead, and the Heat were in the lead. They were going to win the game, win the series, and then that crazy stuff happens. So
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating from both sides. If you're a Celtics fan, obviously it's frustrating because you you got the lead in this game. Like the Celtics, like it looked like they had this in the bag.
Yep.
And but they managed to blow it. And so the Heat make this furious comeback. I mean, it's a crazy game. Caleb Martin played great. Duncan Robinson played really well. Gabe Vincent played really well, but Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo did not.
Yeah.
So it's just really, really strange for a game to go down like that. And then, by the way, if it not for that Derek White miracle shot, everyone's blaming Al Horford because of that foul. Jimmy gets the ball, for some reason decides, I'm going to go to the corner, which is never a good idea. And, tries to take this crazy shot that there's no way he would have made. And Horford fouls him. It's just bizarre. It's totally bizarre. That was one of the when I heard somebody say it's the most ludicrous NBA game I've ever seen. Where it's like, first it looks like, Boston has it, and then it looks like Miami totally has it.
Yeah. It's one of these things where, and now, you said it perfectly. There's no shame in Miami losing. At the beginning of the series, there would have been no shame in Miami losing, right? Because Boston technically is the better team. But when you get up 3-0, no team has ever given that up. So if Miami loses Game 7, they will. And let's just think about this. 150 times a team has gone up 3-0. They've won the series every single time. Okay?
Yep.
So odds are, if the Celtics do this, for the rest of our lifetimes, you're never going to see this happen again. Odds are. Now maybe I could be wrong, but so that basically means that for decades, the Miami Heat will be known as the only team to give up a 3-0 lead, which really sucks, even though Boston's better than them and there's technically no shame in losing the series. Losing it like this really sucks.
Yeah, and that was my whole thought process, was I just don't want to blow a 3-0 lead.
Yeah.
But after Game 6, I've kind of changed, because if Boston's going to win on a miracle shot like that,
Yeah, what are
Okay,
you supposed to
like
do?
I just there's nothing for me to say. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You can't fight destiny sometimes, Clark. And when
Yeah,
you
no, you
get
can't.
you catch a
So
break like that,
yeah, but again, Boston's been pretty bad at home. Um, and Miami just they, I mean, it just they got to find a way to just pull off one more. I don't want to say miracle. That's the wrong word, but they just got to. You got to put it together one more time. And again, I'm not. It's just weird. I'm gonna be like if Miami loses this, it's gonna be weird because this year has been a success. They were
yeah,
they struggled just to make the playoffs. The fact that they're one win away from making it to the finals that's an accomplishment. And I don't care that some people are like, oh well, they underachieved during the regular season. I don't know. Maybe they overachieved last year. Like,
right.
so I don't really know that I necessarily buy that. So yeah, we'll see how I feel afterwards if Miami ends up losing. But I don't think Miami could win. Like, why not? I mean, Boston, it's not like they proved anything with their end of game problems in Game 6. If anything, that just reconfirms what we already knew.
It's exactly right. That's the thing. You flip this forward to Game 7, there's no outcome that would surprise me. None.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised no matter what happens. I can't believe the Celtics are 8-point favorites again. It's like, how?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where like I know people are saying, well, Boston's a better team. And yes, technically they are. They haven't really played like it. I mean, for most of the series, they really haven't. So
they're more talented. That's true.
They're more
like
talented.
That's
right.
100% truth.
To do better stuff at the end of games.
Right. But that's one of the things that has bothered me, the past 2 weeks is people they're the better team. Like, well, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, they're more talented. I agree. But, you see it from them all the time. No. If Boston puts it all together, sure. But yeah, it's a tough game. It was a tough deal. I feel, but after that, I kind of feel like I'm in a better place now. I'm going to be disappointed. It's going to be disappointing.
It's just, it's one of the, it's you hate losing like that because it's like they were in position to win the game, and I mean even with like Butler made some plays and stuff, but then Duncan Robinson missed like a really good look. And the fact that they still, I mean, and Al Horford had to foul Jimmy Butler. So, yeah, but I will say this now, watching both of these teams, like, Miami is not as good as Denver. Okay. Like that's pretty clear. Maybe Boston matches up better, but at the same time, Boston's going to screw around.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets know exactly what they're doing, and you cannot screw around with them.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think Denver's just much better put together. They know who they are. Boston will have home court, but I don't really think that matters that much because Boston goes through long stretches where they look like they don't know what they're doing. I mean, Tatum he scores like 25 points in the first half and then doesn't really take a shot in the third quarter. It's just, could you ever see Jokic or Murray going through an entire quarter and not being the focal point of the offense?
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
They're such a strange team.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm God, I don't know who I'm picking. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Could Miami win? Yeah, absolutely. Now, before this, I said if it gets to Game 7, I'm picking Boston. And, I mean, I guess I'll kind of stick with that because I feel like Boston maybe has figured some stuff out about defending Butler and defending Bam. So, maybe I'll stick with that. But if it gets close at the end, I mean, as a Boston fan, can you be confident? I mean, come on. I mean, some buttholes are going to be clenched together if it's like 2 minutes to go and they're only up by like 8 or something. People are going to be like,
and the thing is, like you would think a home game would be a plus, right? But if it's a close game and they're cracking down the stretch, the home crowd is not going to help you. You're not going to get energy from it when you're blowing the game in the fourth quarter. The crowd is going to be beside themselves.
Yeah.
So, it ought to be a fascinating game. So the idea that you had for a topic that I'm really glad that you brought up, because I think it's a perfect example of how people overreact to everything. They don't really have any of the real information about it, and the only people who are who seem to have a problem with it are the people that are way too close to it and just can't see the data that's right in front of them. So the NFL changed the kickoff rule to basically, which, by the way, Clark, do you know this is the same rule that they use in college?
Oh, really?
College football changed to this rule in 2018.
Okay.
So I don't remember there being a huge uproar 3 or 4 years ago about this. So we're going to start with that. Like, okay, no one complained about this when they're in college. So they changed the rule to where if you catch the ball, and you haven't broken the 25, so you catch the ball at the 25 and into the end zone, you fair catch it, you get the ball at the 25. So basically, they've extended the area. You can get a touchback all the way up to the 25-yard line, basically, if you call for a fair catch. And so this got everyone in an uproar for 2 or 3 days. People complaining, oh, what's the NFL doing? They're ruining the kickoff. Like, what are we going to do? Like, how, the special teams coaches are going to, what are we going to do with special teams coaches? We're going to take away the kickoff. Like, oh my God, we're getting rid of it. And the NFL is hypocritical and a lot of stuff. Some I agree with, some I don't. And so it just kind of, I thought it was really funny. You sent me a text, said, on the podcast, we need to pour one out for the kickoff, and we need to, acknowledge.
Kickoff, rest in peace.
Right. Rest in peace, kickoff. And, it's such a sad day for the NFL that we're now limiting the kickoff by 2% or whatever the number is. Yeah. So
the theme when a soldier dies,
taps.
Yeah, you just kind of.
Yeah. So listen, I think it's patently ridiculous that we're picking out some bizarro play that if you be honest about it is really kind of irrelevant to football, and we've chosen to make this a gigantic deal. So I have some data that I'm going to read off, but I'm going to let you go first. You tell me give me your whole
well, first of all, this is again one of those issues where people are telling you to care about it. And 5 minutes ago, you didn't think anything of this, but now the media is telling you, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And then, Dan Patrick was talking about this, and he's just like, "Well, this is they're acting like they care about player safety, and but they schedule extra games and they do all this other stuff that's not really about player safety." Look, are they hypocritical when it comes to player safety? Absolutely. There's plenty of examples of that. But they have also done things to make the sport safer, in terms of limiting the hitting and how they're enforcing that, not touching the quarterbacks. They used to have like 4-man wedges on kickoffs. You can't do that anymore. They went down to 3 and then down to 2. You can't. So that's it. You can't do that anymore. They've moved around the place where the kickoff is. Now, have they scheduled games on Thursday nights, which is absolutely ridiculous? Yes. Have they added a game to the schedule? Yes. Are they going to add more? Yes. Making them fly all the way to Europe to play a football game is ridiculous? Yes. That's absolutely true. But they have done things to help make the game safer. So the idea that you're going to then bitch and moan that they're doing something to make the game safer, even though they're hypocritical, yet all last year, all you guys could say was Tua needs to retire because he's had multiple concussions in a season, when that happens all the time. So it's just, the NFL is hypocritical? No, the sports media is hypocritical. I mean, really. And second of all, do we really care that much about the kickoff? Is it? Are you going to not watch? Are you still going to be tuning in on Sunday
Right.
afternoon with chicken wings and beer and ignoring your family for 7 hours? I think you still are. So you know what? Just it just rings hollow. I'm sorry. I don't buy most of the time. I don't buy media outrage. So
Yeah, I never thought I'd live in a world where there were football purists. I didn't know that that existed. I didn't know that that was
yeah,
a thing. You're ruining the game. You're taking away the spirit of, blah, blah, blah. And, Andy Reid complained about it. Well, where does it stop? At some point it becomes flag football. You
no,
know, uh,
it doesn't.
I know it's absolutely ridiculous. And then what I love, like you brought up Dan Patrick, where they were saying on Dan Patrick's show now, oh well, they're eliminating special teams. I mean, listen, Steve Tasker and Bill Bates of the Cowboys. I mean, what would they do today? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, if you take those guys away, I mean, what are we doing? It's like, yeah, nobody cares about that. Like nobody
They already
watches
had their
football.
careers. They made a bunch of money.
Right.
What's the problem? I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Nobody cares about special teams guys. We didn't care about them when they played. Okay. The media told us to care about them. We didn't. Okay. People who watch football, they care about the quarterback and does he throw touchdowns. That's what they care about. Our team's scoring points. That's what matters, not the kickoff. So, okay, so here's the deal. Kickoffs, Clark. So they changed the rule in college football in 2018. Okay. The data since then, I was reading this I read an article about this, and then I watched a YouTube video where, there's a guy who was basically saying we should get rid of the kickoff altogether because it's stupid. And after he made a pretty convincing argument. So basically 1% of kickoffs get returned for touchdowns. So we're talking about 1%. Basically, Clark, if you had a dice with 100 sides to it, you'd just be rolling it, hoping you get one panel to show up. That's what you're doing every time there's a kickoff. So in college football, it went from 3.1 kickoffs returned per game, so not touchbacks, ones that were actually returned, to 2.6 kickoffs per game. So basically, you're losing one kickoff every other game.
Yeah.
That's what people are complaining about.
Well, wait a minute.
So,
How are you even losing it? I don't understand. Hang on. How are you even losing that? Because I thought it was just if you fair catch it, you get it at the 25. Like what? I don't understand.
you're not losing the possession. I'm just saying those are the kickoffs that were actually someone tried to return it. Now, a lot of less kickoffs get returned now than ever because kickers are. By the way, special teams coaches complaining about this, they go tell their kickers to kick it out of the end zone. Like they don't want there to be a return.
Yeah.
Now guys return it, right? But special teams coaches don't want there to be a return. They want the guy to kick it through the end zone, so that's the end of it. So no, they didn't. You're right. They didn't lose. No, they don't lose the possession. It's just there were less kickoffs. So basically, but that's what I'm talking about. It is statistically insignificant the fact that there are less kickoffs. Okay.
Right.
So the fact that people are getting upset about that when you just look at the data and it's like this isn't even going to make any. You're not going to make. They could have. By the way, they could have changed this rule and not told us. No one would notice because of how rare and useless it is.
Well,
It doesn't.
wait a
It
minute.
doesn't.
I'm confused here. So what exactly is this new rule that they've done?
So if they kick the ball off, you catch it. Short of the 25, so the 25-yard line to the end zone. You catch it anywhere in there, and you call for a fair catch. You get it at the 25.
Okay.
Whereas before it had to be in the end zone. If you fair caught it in the field of play, then you got it exactly where you were, even if you were inside the 25-yard line. Now, if you catch it past the 25-yard line, which that's never going to happen, and you call a fair catch, you get it right there, just like a punt.
Okay.
But so basically they've made it so from the 25-yard line and in is basically the end zone. If you catch it and you call for a fair catch and catch it anywhere in there, then you get the ball to 25 no matter what. So, and they're basically, so the argument is, well, you're disincentivizing the kickoff. And it's like, we've already disincentivized it like crazy. Like, this is where we are with it. And, I thought Nick Saban made a really good point. He's like, why don't we just move the kickoff to the 40-yard line? If we want to get rid of the kickoff, why don't we just move it up, and then they'll kick it into the end zone 99% of the time, and we don't really have to think about it very much. It's like you could accomplish the same goal without doing the same thing. So the other thing is that the NFL is doing with this is they're saying that this is safer. And the guy in that YouTube video I sent you, his name's John Boyce from SB Nation. And he basically shows the point. Like, he shows kickoffs. They kick the ball. It goes into the end zone. The guy catches it in the end zone, takes a knee. Okay. But the guys who are coming on the kickoff coverage, they've already hit each other. Right? So by the time the ball gets to the end zone, so just having the kickoff in general is still dangerous. Like, the idea that's the part that blew me away that I didn't realize. The NFL is saying, well, this will be safer. It'll reduce concussions. Not really. Like, because the kickoff is the only play in football where you run like 30 or 40 yards down the field and then run into people. Like, it's the only play that's where there's all 11 or 10 out of 11 guys are all doing that. It's the only play like that. And they're just like, well, what about punts? Punts are different because you start at the line of scrimmage. Right? Yeah. So they start lined up face to face. They hit each other. There's no long distance running and then crazy collisions where guys are running 40 and 50 yards to hit each other. So that's the other thing. Yeah. It's like they're saying, well, maybe they'll get it reduced. They might get it reduced because there'll be less kickoffs returned. But it's not reduced because the play's safer.
Right.
It's still dangerous as hell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, for the people saying, well, what's next? They're going to get rid of the kickoff. Yeah, they are going to get rid of the kickoff. This is the first step. Like, literally, they're going to do this. Everyone's going to relax. And then in a few years, they will probably at some level get rid of the kickoff.
Well, and that's what this SB Nation video was basically saying. Like, the kickoff's stupid. We should get rid of it. Hardly anything happens. 75% of the time, the team starts their drive between the 20 and the 30, right? So basically, 25% of the time, either something great happens or nothing happens, right? And then 1% of the time, it gets returned for a touchdown. So he's like, it's stupid. We really don't need it. The only reason we still have it is because we need the onside kick. We don't have a way for if you need to get the ball quickly, we don't have another way to do it. And the onside kick is one of the dumbest, like, most ridiculous plays that we have in sports. Like, you line up 10 yards away, I'm going to kick it 10 yards, and then we're just going to all have a free-for-all for it. It's like it doesn't make any sense. It's not the kick. The onside kick is not a safe play. And the guy goes through, like, I guess in the early 1900s, there was a debate to whether it would be more significant to the offense to have onside kicks or the forward pass. So people thought at one point the onside kick would be like an awesome, offensive weapon. So it's just to point out that we have a lot of this stuff in football, like the kickoff, just because that's the way they've always done it. There's no good reason to have it at all. We really don't need it, And I'm not sitting here saying, no, they're 100% right. Get rid of the kickoff. You guys are all stupid. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is what the NFL is trying to do with this is just, it's not significant. It's insignificant in the grand scope of how many players and all the games, and you take an entire season into account. There's no point to this. So everyone getting mad about something that's basically insignificant anyway, and then the NFL saying, well, it'll prevent injury. Maybe it will, but even if it does, it's going to be negligible. So it's like, yeah, the NFL is just trying to, and it's a trial basis. They're going to try it this season and see how it goes. But you talk to anybody who's in football, they're like, yeah, because you're taking this, and that's the other thing, the other point I wanted to bring up. You're taking the strategy out of it. There's no strategy on the kickoff. I know that NFL coaches want to make you believe that, there's these all kinds of different things we can do, and blah. No, the kickoff's basically been the same for 100 years. It's never changed. It's basically it's the same thing. Like, it's got very little chance of success. And even like getting good field position, you think, you get good field position. Starting the drive at your own 40, it gets you about half a point per possession better than starting at the 20. So it's not even like, I know these are adages we all think, you get that good field position, right? It'll give better chance to score a touchdown. Not really. Yeah. Like a little bit, but not enough to make any kind of, discernible difference. It's just completely ridiculous. There's no strategy in the kickoffs. You're basically just rolling the dice and seeing what happens. And then they're making these arguments. These coaches are complaining, well, maybe they'll try kicking it high in the air. Maybe they'll try a squib kick. Maybe they'll do a bunch of this other stuff. It's like, All that other stuff is nonsense. It's like parlays and all this stuff in the betting world that they try to get you to do. Parlays and 7-team teasers and 7-point all this nonsense that they're all sucker plays just intended to get your money. Like all of these, we have kickoff strategies. I'm sorry. Who's the last game-changing kickoff that you saw? When's the last time you went, "Oh wow, that's an interesting strategy"? Half the time.
So I understand the onside kick thing, but I still think they're going to get rid of the kickoff. They're just going to have to replace the onside kick with something else.
Right. Exactly.
So what about this? What about I guess that eliminates the surprise onside kick. But if you're behind late in the fourth quarter, and you score and then you want to try to get the ball back, how about you get one play that's like, and you have to gain, I don't know.
Well,
50.
There's an interesting point on that. So Greg Schiano, used to coach the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then he's coaching Rutgers. He came up with an idea, basically said like, all right, you score, then if you want to, you can take the option of having 4th and 15 at your own 20.
Yeah.
Because and what's crazy is though the odds of completing a 4th and 15 are better than getting an onside kick. An onside kick's down to about 5% right now.
Exactly.
So your odds are actually a little bit better on that, but it is an inherent risk. If you don't get it, you're basically giving, like, the game's basically over, especially in a situation like that. So there's all kinds of ideas that are going to be batted around, and I'm all for trying new stuff, but the idea that the kickoff is going to do some kind of major damage or affect football that we're watching on Sundays in any meaningful way is completely useless. All of the other rule changes, the stuff about the quarterbacks and going across the middle and not lowering your helmet, all that other stuff has changed the game a whole lot more than anything having to do with the kickoff is going to change anything.
Right. Yeah. No, I think they should definitely replace the onside kick, because then I think that's even more fun.
Yeah, the onside kick is really dangerous too.
Yeah.
So I just don't. But like the point I made about the kickoff, like that this guy made about it was like, guys are still ramming into each other even if it's a touchback.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even, like, the NFL making the argument, this will lower concussions by 15%. I don't know about that. I couldn't find any data about college football and concussions relating to that, but I just feel like that's nonsense. I just feel like they're selling us a bag of shit. That's just, I don't buy that this is going to significantly reduce concussions, and even if they do, no one's going to talk about it and no one's going to care, which, brings us to our point. It's May. We need stuff to talk about. Let's complain about this complete bullshit rule change that has no effect on anything. And in September, like you said, no one will care. The sports bars will be full.
And, look, I on some level, here's I guess my basic thought on rule changes in sports. Okay. Sometimes I think maybe you could point out a rule where people are like, oh, that's ridiculous or whatever. Sometimes, maybe. Okay, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head because that proves how much I really give a shit about rule changes. But anyway, for the most part, sports are going to change and adapt, particularly the NFL. That's their brand. They continue to adapt and make changes, okay? And in order to maintain their spot at the top, they're going to have to, at the very least, have people view them as, they're trying to reduce injuries because of how conscious we are of those things, And it's another thing. What I just find funny is, you think about people complaining about rule changes to make the sport safer. Okay. When you and I were kids, we rode bicycles, we didn't wear helmets, right?
Right.
But if you have kids now, why would you not put a helmet on them? I mean, first of all, I think it's the law, but also, why wouldn't you, when our parents were children, their cars didn't even have fucking seat belts. Okay? Hell, when we were really little, the seat belts in the back seat were just the lap part. They didn't even have the shoulder part. Okay? But when we were kids, it was really important to wear your seatbelt. But then, you fast forward a little bit later than that, and people are like, well, wait a minute. until kids are like the age of 12, they should be in some kind of booster seat to make sure the seatbelt works properly, right? And people just do that now, and it's no big thing, right? So there's times where people bitch and moan about stuff, and it's like, yeah, sometimes changing and adapting stuff is the right thing to do because we know more now, and we know how to better adapt to the situation to make it safer. So, really, again, this is really just much ado about nothing. No one's going to give a shit during the season. They're really not. Everybody will move on and they'll keep watching. So, and again, it's still a fair point that the NFL really pays lip service to this stuff, but it's not like they're necessarily going to do everything they would need to do to make the sport a lot safer than it is, because it's still incredibly dangerous. And if you tried to invent football now like it didn't exist before, you couldn't, because people would be like, wait a minute, you're gonna put all these pads on and then you're gonna run full speed right at that other guy and slam into him? What are you, psychotic? What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, I think it's I get where the NFL's at with it. I understand, but yeah, there's another example, Clark, where it's one of these things that you and I see where we're just like, we just don't understand the reaction. We're just like, you're really this upset about this? And then it flames out and it is absolutely nothing. So I don't get it. I don't understand what the outrage is. I don't get, and Clark, I thought you made a really good point the other day when we were texting about this, and you said they're messing with people's drugs because let's face it, at this point the NFL is heroin for people. That's what it is. Yeah. It is.
You know what the best analogy? I just thought of this. The best analogy for this. Have you ever seen the show Intervention?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what ends up happening, at some point in like the middle of the show, the family of the person who's addicted starts messing with their drugs. Like, well, I'm not going to give you money, and I'm not going to do this, and you can't live here, or whatever. And the drug addict completely loses their shit. Again, don't mess with my drugs.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. And this is kind of what it's turned into. Like, you suggest anything that might change football a little bit from what people are accustomed to, and it's, oh, what are you doing? You can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. How can you do this to me? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just, and the NFL has continued to make these changes. They keep doing it. Everyone goes up in arms about it. Remember when the first time they were like, we're going to play games in London? People were really upset about it. Remember the first time that they did this, and everybody just adapts and moves on to it. So it's just, but you're totally right, Clark. Like, it's like this is, and I was watching on YouTube like a bunch of NFL fans like putting up these short videos of just, what are they doing? Like, they're taking away football. They're, blah blah. It's the same guys about the quarterbacks. Put a skirt on them. It's those type of people, and they're all blowing a gasket about this, and it's just like, are you serious? So yeah, but you're by the way, you're totally right. This is where we are. It shows where we're at with football. The NFL says, hey, we're going to make this minor change that won't really affect the game. Okay? It's really small. You won't even notice it. And everyone's like, oh, how could they do this? This is, it's just like, all right, this, like, we've seen signs of this the last 20 years, Clark, but we've got a severe addiction to football. We're
going to switch your Cheerios to off-brand Cheerios. What the fuck are you doing?
It's so true. Just, oh my God, how could you do this? It's just like, wow. I mean, people did this, the college football rules they're talking about, where they want to make the game, the game time shorter. You know what I mean? They want to speed it up a little bit. And it's just like, it's just like, my God. So yeah, we're beyond addicted. If you did something this minor in basketball or baseball or hockey or anything else you wanted, and meanwhile, last week I'm watching the Preakness, I'm watching the horse race, and it's like, we're still doing this though. You know what I mean? Don't mess with my football, but keep running these horses and killing them every week. I love that. It's like, what are we like? So yeah, it's just bizarre. Meanwhile, right? Horse racing goes on, Clark, but don't mess with my football.
Well, and the other thing is, baseball made some pretty significant changes this season, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is great!"
Right.
Which again, because they're not addicted to baseball the way they're addicted to football.
Exactly right. So anyway, I just wanted to point out, if you're interested, John Boyce on SB Nation, I think you can look him up on YouTube. That's where I got a lot of his videos. He had some really good stuff. He does this thing called Chart Party, where it's like he runs all these numbers and does these things. He did one where he ran the 2015-2016 NBA season. He just took out the 3-point line. He's like, what would happen in the season if I made all the threes worth 2?
Okay.
And surprisingly, didn't change much. It was
Really?
that was the Cavaliers Warriors finals. The only thing that would have changed was Oklahoma City would have beaten the Warriors in the conference finals. So it would have been the Thunder against the Cavs.
Right.
But there was 14 out of 15 playoff series. Only one. That was the only one that changed. All the rest of them were exactly same. Now the Warriors did not win 73 games. They won like 59 or something like that. But it was just fascinating. It was like, man, everybody gets all up in arms about these things. Then you actually look at it and you actually do the research, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's the Warriors won because, as you and I have been saying for years, the Warriors won because they do all these other things well.
Right.
Defense, rebounding, the passing. They do all these other things really well. That's why they win, not because they made a bunch of threes.
Right.
It's not the case. Anyway, so the other topic that I wanted to talk about, that I think it's interesting, and it kind of broadens out a little bit, was, this week it came out, so Denver is the Denver Nuggets are in the NBA finals. And so Nikola Jokic, he won MVP of the Western Conference Finals. He finally makes it to the finals. The guy's won 2 MVPs out of the last 3 years. And so a lot of, Jokic was in that space where it's like, oh yeah, he's really good, but why hasn't he won anything? Same thing we were doing with Giannis a few years ago, where it's like, yeah, but, can you win with this guy? Where people are doing that. The guy's a great player, but yet people are like, yeah, but they haven't won the championship, so how seriously can I take it? So they're asking the question on all the shows, does Jokic get enough respect? Because Michael Malone, the Denver Nuggets head coach, is, still talking about, my God, I mean, look what this guy's doing. He's got the most triple doubles in the NBA playoffs. He's got, and listen, no offense to me, Jokic has been awesome. So I just think, and the answer, the answer is really simple. It's like, no, he hasn't gotten enough respect, because the guy wins 2 MVPs. He's clearly showing he's one of the best players in the league. And everybody's like, yeah, but, he's got this limitation and that limitation. And, I just feel like the discourse just turns into, instead of talking about him as a great basketball player, it's like, well, yeah, but he hasn't won anything, blah, 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 blah. And, I just want to point out that the last 2 years, the Nuggets lost to the Golden State Warriors in 2022. They won the championship. 2021, they lost to the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns went to the finals and lost. 2020, the last time that Denver actually had a totally healthy roster, they go to the Western Conference Finals. Okay, yeah, they lost to the Lakers, but they played pretty well in that series. They were competitive. The Lakers beat them, but whatever. Denver lost that series. And then you look back at Denver's roster in 2020, and it's Paul Millsap and one of the Plumlee brothers and Jeremy Grant and Monty Morris and Gary Harris, guys who you're not sitting there, well, they're good contributors to playoff teams. And then you look at their team this year, they have Jamal Murray healthy. They got Porter healthy. They've got Aaron Gordon, who they've had for a couple years, traded for in 2021. They got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They got Bruce Brown. They got this roster that actually fits what Jokic does perfectly. And it's like, Jokic hasn't changed. He's been the same player for the last 2 or 3 years, basically. It's just the difference is now he's got a legitimate roster, and his second best player is healthy and playing like as well as he played when he was the last time he was healthy in the playoffs. And wow, look at it. Wow, the guy's amazing. And it's like, but Giannis couldn't win the big one, and then blah, blah, blah. And you and I were on this the whole time. Giannis won because he finally got the support that he needed from Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Otherwise, that series against the Phoenix Suns comes down to 2 or 3 plays, or they don't win it. So
Right.
I just think there's 2 points, but my first point is basically no, Jokic is not getting enough respect. I'm sorry. Like, there are people just figuring out, oh, wow, this guy's really good. Now, that's not necessarily, I'm not blaming everybody for that, but let's tell it like it is. Let's not pretend, oh, because in basketball circles, the guy gets a lot of respect, doesn't mean that he's getting the love and attention that he should get. So that's my first point. I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's people are sort of grudgingly, you listen to him, that's like, yeah, he's apparently really good. Yeah, but what do you think the Lakers are going to do this offseason? I mean, it immediately pivots to that. And, like we talked about before, Michael Malone, the coach, is just, he's feeding off this, and just, he continues to hammer it home, like, because he's playing it to his team. It's like, yeah, we're disrespected. Which, that's the whole nobody believes in this thing, and coaches have been doing that forever. So, yeah, no, he's not really getting the respect he deserves. And, he's probably never going to get it, And I think some people were like, oh, yeah, he'll get respect. He's just got to win a championship. And then Giannis won a championship, and then he loses in the playoffs, and now people are like, oh, well, I guess we were wrong about that. And it's like, so what's the standard now? Like, the standard used to be relatively fair. Like, first of all, we wouldn't totally rip you if you didn't win a championship. And then if you won one, we'd be like, all right, awesome. And then it was kind of like, okay, we're not going to, this guy's won a championship before, he's legit, whatever. And then people kind of back off. They might criticize you a little bit if you don't win more, but, they're kind of done with it. So, yeah, it just kind of is what it is. And I mean, Tim Duncan didn't really. And granted, I was not giving him a lot of credit when he was winning championships because they were boring. But people didn't really give Tim Duncan his due just because he wasn't. Some people have said he doesn't have it, and that's actually true. I mean, he's not very. What's the right way? He doesn't really care about any of the attention or anything like that. And I mean, he's married to his high school girlfriend. They have like a kid, and his family's at games and stuff. That's more important to him. That stuff, and then basketball, obviously. So it's kind of like Tim Duncan, and the rest of his career. I mean, we'll see how many more if he wins. Assuming he wins the championship this year, we'll see how many more he wins going forward. But that's probably going to be the way it is with him and with this Nuggets team. People are just going to kind of grudgingly like, yeah, they're really good, but I just think it's boring. And the funny thing is, though, it's not boring. The Spurs were boring, okay? I mean, the Spurs actually were boring. The first few titles they won were boring. That last one that they won in 2014, that team was in 2014 and then the year before that team was actually, their offense was actually kind of fun, like the way they moved the ball and stuff, and they shot threes. So, but this team is not boring. I don't watching Jokic is not boring because it looks kind of clunky and weird, but he's still really good, and Jamal Murray's fun to watch. I mean, they're shooting threes, they're attacking the basket. Their coach is kind of, I guess you could compare that to Popovich a little bit. I don't know. Popovich would get kind of annoyed and wouldn't answer questions. Malone will just keep answering questions. And he'll kind of give it right back to the media, which is kind of fun. So I push back on the idea that they're boring, but people just seem to kind of think that. I mean, some people don't really find Giannis all that appealing. So,
yeah, and that's a very good point about Tim Duncan. That's the other thing I was going to say was people don't give Tim Duncan respect now. When you list the top 10 NBA players, people are like, oh, yeah, Tim Duncan. He doesn't get, he doesn't. So if people don't respect Tim Duncan now, don't tell me that Jokic has plenty of respect now, because he doesn't. So it's just blows my mind. It's one of the greatest players of all time, might be the greatest power forward ever. And people are like, yeah, it's a great point. It's what are we talking about here? And, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to get No, he's probably never going to get it. And by the way, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. It's perfect for Denver. They should lean, like, Colin Cowherd was saying this week, they should lean into it. Like, yeah, they're not going to get, all of the love that everybody else gets. Number one, they play in Denver. Like, nobody's getting excited about Denver. Okay, if he played for the Lakers or the Celtics or the Knicks or some team like that, it would be a completely different story. So that's number one. And Gilbert Arenas was talking about this on JJ Redick's podcast.
Willie, shh. Sorry.
So he was basically saying that, look, he's not going to. This guy's not going to be the face of the league. Like, that's just the way this works. Like, I know that, everybody, he's a great player and I'd love to play with him. That's not an issue. The guy's awesome. But it's not going to be one of those things where he's looked at as, oh, this is our guy. This is, he's not going to be put on the posters. It's not a Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird type deal. And so you just have to, and by the way, that's perfectly fine. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that, but we need to acknowledge that exists and not pretend like, no, what do you mean? Like, we gave him, all anybody did when he won the 2 MVPs and lost in the playoffs was rip the guy. That's all they did. They just complained, oh, this guy, blah, blah, blah. And then Nick Wright is on First Things First on FS1 is saying, no, this is the standard we hold all players to. Like, this is how it works. When you win the MVP and you haven't won the championship, this is how we treat you. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't make it right. Like, I get that you're like, well, that's how it is, and blah, this is how we treat everybody else. So yeah, we're giving them plenty of respect. It's like, no, that's not, it's really not accurate. What the guy did, and, part of this is, and I think we should talk about the LeBron after the game issue. But part of this is after the game, in a perfect example, they sweep the Lakers. Okay. And then after the game, all anybody wants to talk about is LeBron going to retire? Like, what are the Lakers going to do? Who are they going to sign? Are they going to be able to keep their free agents? Like, what's going to happen with this team? It's just like, I mean, I don't know what to say anymore. Like, if that's the case, then I don't even know what to tell you. If you're telling me, no, he gets plenty of respect when all you want to do is dissect LeBron saying, I think I need to take some time and I have a lot to think about. Somehow that turned into, is he going to retire? I mean, he's 38 years old. He's played in the NBA for 20 years. You mean he might retire? Like, I want to address that real quick. I mean, first of all, the media deserves plenty of blame for turning that into a non-story. Like, good Lord. Like, he basically said, I have a lot of things to think about. Yeah, he should have a lot of stuff to think about. Like it shouldn't be shocking to anyone that LeBron might retire next year. Jesus Christ. How many years does the guy have to play? So there's no shock to that. As to the idea that, well, LeBron's calculated and he's trying to take bring the attention on him and whatever. I mean, I know LeBron's calculated. I get it. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, Bill Simmons is like blaming LeBron for everything. Like, he's basically like, LeBron shouldn't have done that right after Denver won. You got swept. Give them the credit. I don't like bringing that up.
But the media would have done that anyway because they would have talked about what's going to happen with the Lakers. Should they make a move or whatever? You know?
Yeah, they would have done that. I agree with you. They would have done that anyway. And I don't think – and they didn't ask him, are you going to retire? They asked him some questions about, like, next season, and he basically said, yeah, I got a lot of stuff to think about. And so people just took it and ran with it. And, by the way, that's how this works, and that's my point about this whole thing. No, Jokic is not going to get the respect he deserves. Neither is Giannis. Neither is any of these guys from a small market that's not like super flashy and, not like there's not another Steph Curry out there who all the kids love, and gets all the attention. They're just not, Jokic and Giannis are just not like that. And also,
look, mark my words. Next year, assuming that the Nuggets come back with basically the same team, say they have a really good year, okay. Everybody before the playoffs, they're going to be like, well, I like the Lakers, or assuming Phoenix makes some moves, they're going to be like, I like Phoenix, or I think Golden State's going to figure things out or whatever. Like they're going to pick them, you know, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be like, well, maybe the Nuggets are still the better team, you know. And as far as Tim Duncan goes, like, I mean, yeah, that's a great point about, you know, when people think about top 10 players of all time. I mean, you know, if you're asking me who I'm taking between him and Kobe, I'm taking Tim Duncan. Like, Tim Duncan just, you know, proved over time. I mean, granted, I know Kobe was basically all about winning. It's just the way that he went about some stuff at times kind of screwed over the team, you know. Whereas Tim Duncan was, you know, I mean, they bring in Ginobili and Tony Parker, and it's like, all right, so what are we doing? How are we doing this? Let's figure this out, you know. And then he wants to try to keep playing and win more championships, and then it's like, we need you to be more of a facilitator and more of a cog in the machine rather than the whole offense being built around you. Okay, let's do it. And then they basically almost won 2 titles, you know. And then I'm trying to think, like, the next, I think it was last year they played Oklahoma City and he got like blocked at the rim or something like that. But anyway, that to me, that's the point, you know. And then people are like, well, he never repeated or three-peated or whatever. Okay. Between 2003 and 2007, a variety of things happened that could have swung things. Okay. In 2004, Derek Fisher makes a miracle shot. Okay. Otherwise, the Spurs probably win that series. They go to the finals that year. And I mean, they did end up beating Detroit the next year in the finals, so maybe they could have beaten them, you know, that in 2004. So they won in 2003. They could have won in 2004. In 2005, they win. In 2006, some craziness happens at the end of Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals. They probably would have beaten that Heat team. You know, I mean, if they had gotten up 2-0 on the Heat, they wouldn't have let them get it back in the series. Okay? 2007, granted, they had some things go their way for them to win in 2007 with that suspension, you know. But, I mean, and then you look at the years when the Lakers were winning the championship. I mean, yeah, you had to get through the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, where Shaq was just in his prime dominating everybody. I mean, you know, and at that point they didn't have Ginobili and Parker, and David Robinson had obviously been declining for a while. So, you know, yeah, he didn't repeat, but I mean, they did win the title 5 times. And he did prove over that time that he was just all about winning. You know, he didn't get there was no BS going on. There was nothing else. It was just, what do we need to do to win? You know, and that's what they did. They won a lot. So, yeah, I would probably take Duncan over Kobe.
I mean, and that's, by the way, I think Jokic's career has a chance to be on that Tim Duncan trajectory. I think it's got a chance to be a similar kind of thing where he's the centerpiece of this team and they just keep putting the right stuff around him. And by the way, like honestly, like if you think about it, Clark, this really worked out perfectly for Denver, this whole run, because it's not like, right, they make the trade for Aaron Gordon in 2021. It's like, okay, this is our team. We're ready to win the title. And then Jamal Murray gets hurt. Yeah. So they have to go through the next playoff run, and then. But if you look at the roster that they have now compared to what they've had the past couple of years, like the year where I think it was that first year Murray was out, 2021. I mean, they're running like a G League roster out there. They got Austin Rivers and, you know, God knows who else out there. It's like now they've actually got their real team, and they've got everybody going, and they've got the main guys locked up, basically, on their new contracts. So it's, yeah, they're in really good shape. You know, and with by the way, I was looking into this. I heard this on Bill Simmons' podcast. The new CBA, the new collective bargaining agreement for the NBA, it's going to be difficult for these teams that like to spend a lot of money, like the Warriors and the Clippers and whatever. So Denver having these guys on, you know, contracts where they know what their salary is already, like it's going to be really tough. Like basically like the super team thing, that's done. You're not going to be able to do that anymore. You can't do what the Warriors did with Durant. You won't be able to do it. Like that's a pipe dream. And even like if the new CBA was in force now, the Celtics don't get Brogdon, the Warriors don't get DiVincenzo, the all these teams that added the 7th, 8th guy, You can't have them with the way that this thing works, especially when you get over the second luxury tax. So it's going to be basically these teams are going to be built, Clark. It's going to be 2 stars. That's going to be what it is. Like that's going to be the new paradigm. It's going to be your 2 guys, like the Celtics. Like they can have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They can't really have any other high-priced guys on their team. Like that's going to be it. It's all going to have to be mid-range salaries because you get over, I think it's $169 million, something like that. So if you got 2 max guys, you're spending over $100 million each year on 2 guys. Like that's kind of it. And the other thing is like the Lakers, like trying to do this thing where they get Kyrie Irving. It's not going to happen. Like I don't even think they can re-sign. They can't re-sign Hachimura and Austin Reeves.
Yeah.
I don't even think they'll be able to do that. So when people talk in the NBA now about making moves, it's gonna be really tight. Anyway, yeah. Jokic doesn't get any respect, but you know what? Denver's gonna win the championship, and he's gonna win Finals MVP. So we'll see what happens. You know, he's still not gonna get respect when he does that. But I'm just telling you, that's what's gonna happen. I don't see either one of these Eastern Conference teams beating the Denver Nuggets right now.
Yeah, no, that I'm certain about. Tonight, I don't know. You know, I honestly, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna root like crazy for the Heat because, like, it really. I mean, I was kind of treating Game 6 as like our championship game because it's like I just just making the finals is just that's an amazing season for this team. Granted, it's already been an amazing season, but just.
Yep.
God, can we get one more? Like, I'm getting greedy, but can we get just one more friggin' game? Like, just one more, and then whatever happens in the finals, whatever, you know. But, I mean, again, it's still been a great year. It's just, God, I don't want to be the only team. I don't want to be rooting for the only team that's ever lost a 3-0 lead. So...
It sucks to lose this way, but you know what? I mean, for the end until the end of time, it's going to be goddamn that Derek White shot. I mean... Yeah. That's just gonna be what it is, and I think the Heat have done a great job. They've been undermanned the whole time. They lost their second best scorer at the beginning of the playoffs, and it's just they're running. The thing is, they're running out of guys, and they couldn't play Kevin Love last night or Friday night, and I don't know. It's just it feels like there's a part of me that feels like How much could the Heat possibly have left in the tank? And when you lose a game like that, NBA history says that's usually it for you. If you lose a game like that, usually you don't come back from it. But they're playing the Celtics. And when you're playing the Celtics team, anything is possible. We saw it, we saw it last year, and it's like, man, like I can't believe, like it's insane to me. So I'm hoping, Jimmy Butler really sucked in the last game. Like, please, can we at least go out where Jimmy Butler's playing well? I mean, could we at least just make Boston earn it? Make them have to win it in the fourth quarter and earn this thing. Anyway, but yeah, it's tough. It's a tough to lose. Oh God, to lose this series like this is just gonna be brutal. I don't know how we got up 3-0, but when you're up 3-0, you gotta finish it off.
Yeah.
So, anywho, that's our episode for today. Everybody enjoy the playoffs. I mean, next time we'll be on, we'll be talking about, game 2 of the finals. So that, and hey, go Panthers. Panthers are in the finals, Stanley Cup finals. So we'll see how that goes. All right, folks. Thanks for listening.